you're appointed to ask a question. Don't forget to unmute yourself, and because that's convenient. Also, this presentation will be recorded and streamed live on YouTube. So if you don't, as you can hear, yes. So also take that in mind when asking your questions. I think first we have the speaker, which is Colin Watson, and he's going to tell you a bit about his PIP Kit, which is to help people with their disability. It's a co-designed with disability claimants for their personal independence payments. Sorry, Colin. So first I will give the word to him, and after that will be followed by Haoran, who will talk about his computer vision-based crowd counting. So then I will give the floor to Colin, and I'll be silent.
Okay, thank you. Yes, hi, I'm Colin Watson from Open Lab. Back in March, I was due to give a sort of demonstration of PIP Kit at one of Open Lab's partner organisations, Meadowell Connected, which is a community centre in North Shields. They were having a digital day for the launch event of their new Digi Suite. However, events overtook that. So today I'm broadly running through what I would have been doing at Meadowell Connected's sort of drop-in face-to-face sessions. For that event, I'd even made a self-standing sign. So you could take this as my first slide. With the information on there. So I'm going to give you some background information first, show the prototype, and then demonstrate how it's used. It's sort of an inverted mix of what I was going to do at Meadowell Connected. So I'll be showing you some physical things which you won't be able to touch, and there'll be some virtual things which you can touch if you don't mind the fingerprints. So I'm using as few slides as possible. But I've got a few to begin with in particular, because last week when we did a sort of run through of this, some of the documents and so on I was trying to show in front of the camera, it was a little bit difficult to read. So I'll put them into some slides first. So I should just share that starting point with you. Great. So these are the relevant Twitter hashtags and accounts, if you want to mention anything as we go through. One thing is I have put copies of a lot of the documents in a zip file. So if I can just, actually, could I ask Linnea or Emily to paste that into the chat window, because I can't quite, I've just sent them a message directly. If they could paste that in. There's a zip file with some of the things I'm talking about. You don't need it to follow along, but afterwards there are all the URLs and things like that in there if you want to have a look at things afterwards. So this is a show and tell format, and we'll have some time at the end for questions. So first off, what is personal independence payment? PIP is short for personal independence payment. It's a welfare benefit for working age people in the UK who've got longer term health conditions or disabilities which affect their ability to do daily tasks or that reduce their mobility. It's not work related, unlike say incapacity or sickness benefits, and it's not means tested, so neither your income nor savings affect your eligibility or the amount you'll receive. As I mentioned, it's for working age adults. If you're under 16 years old, it's disability living allowance, and if once you've reached state pension age, the benefit's called attendance allowance. There are also some adults on the previous version of what was called disability living allowance who are gradually being moved, or as they call it, migrated onto PIP, which requires a reassessment. The assessment for PIP comprises two components. Firstly, daily living. So if you need help more than half the time for designated activities, such as washing and bathing and preparing food. And secondly, for mobility, if you need help going out or moving around. For each of these two components, a claimant might receive nothing, a lower or a higher rate, so anywhere between 0 and a total of £150 per week. So this could be thousands of pounds per annum. This increases the significance of obtaining the benefit and keeping it through assessments. The assessment of eligibility and award presents significant challenges for claimants, however. Firstly, disability benefit systems have not been designed in an inclusive, sensitive fashion that reflect nuances of experience. Second, the topic of health is inherently sensitive and interactions with other people can be limited by embarrassment. Third, there is a stigma commonly associated with claiming benefits. Fourth, some people are largely dependent on their disability benefit for a reasonable life. Fifth, people have to recall accurately how their conditions affect their daily lives, yet many have communication difficulties arising from these same conditions. The government's Department for Work and Pensions, DWP, who are responsible for this benefit, recalled psychiatric disorder as the most common condition of PIP claimants. And sixth, the task is made more difficult by the need to gather evidence and present the facts on complex forms in a manner that matches the assessment criteria. I'll briefly touch on the process to explain where the prototype intervention fits in. Claimants first have to make a phone call to the DWP, who undertake some basic eligibility checks and record the person's details. The DWP then sends a paper form to the claimant. The claimant has to complete this form and return it, typically within about a month, with supporting evidence that they have or can obtain. It's up to the claimant to obtain and provide all this information from their GP, hospital consultants, other health workers, carers, social workers, etc. Due to the previously mentioned difficulties for claimants and the significance of gaining or losing an award, many seek help from specialist advice agencies to support them articulate and document their experiences on the claim form. These first two steps on this chart. This input is where the research work focuses as well. Although the claim form is only a paper process currently, an online version is being developed by DWP and may be widely available in 2 or 3 years' time. What we might learn now from the paper processes could help inform digital interactions with disability benefit claimants. The paper form itself, which is posted to the claimant, is 33 pages long and is accompanied by a 12-page booklet. And additionally, there's hundreds of other pages of official guidance. The first section asks for some information about the key sort of health professionals who work with the claimant, and also requires a full list of all conditions, including when they started, and a list of medications, including doses, treatments, and any side effects. So really, completing the form is already a life-logging task. The remainder of the document, all 12 sections of it, the claimants have to answer questions and describe the effects of their conditions, what the effects are on their daily living and mobility activities. Note there are some questions where things like sometimes are mentioned, so obviously acknowledging the effects vary. And in the additional notes just shown by these, marked by these pale yellow dots, the form asks, does it vary through the day and between days? And are there good and bad days? This is a lot of information to recall, summarize, and explain. So we wanted to investigate how life logging might help benefit claimants get into the correct mindset and gather information that might help them in their discussions with an advisor, who jointly then put the form together, answer the questions as accurately as possible in order to make a strong claim for the award. The DWP already states that claimants may find it useful to keep a diary over a few days. And in fact, the Multiple Sclerosis Society and Citizens Advice both provide diary templates, these ones you can see on the screen. One of the things that advisors we work with were concerned about was that these things, they're a bit like the claim form itself in some way, and therefore might be off-putting to those people who are needing help with the form itself. The project developed a highly customizable prototype elicitation diary toolkit, which we're going to have a look through. It was co-designed with benefit advisors with a partner charity, and then trialed with claimants making their real benefit claims. So what was in the toolkit and how is it used? So I'll just stop sharing my screen now. Great. As mentioned before, the diary toolkit was offered to claimants making their real claims who were deemed capable of being able to provide fully informed consent. So they either had approached the partner charity to request help, and we approached them about working with the research after the initial phone call to the DWP. But there were also people who already had the form. Either they'd made the phone call to the DWP themselves, or they had been sent the form by the DWP in the form of a reassessment. So they were contacting the partner charity for help at that stage instead, which was already, you know, maybe a week or so down the 1 month gap before they had to send the form back. Once the research was described and they'd agreed to participate, and not everyone wanted to, the various diary options were described and a customized toolkit created based on each claimant's own choices of what might be most appropriate for them to gather information on. One of the things identified during the design stage was that advisors thought claimants were generally very happy to use telephones, but much less apps on phones or websites in general. The familiar was easy and not a burden. The use of a camera was something which was identified very early on, and every kit includes an optional camera. Although some people could have perhaps used a camera phone, not everyone has smartphones, and our design wanted to keep sensitive photos about their health conditions or problems they're having due to those away from other personal images, and also on some separate device which could not secretly or accidentally share such images. So at that time, which was June or so last year, we identified these digital cameras, which were available for about £15 at the time. And although they come in like an action case, which is sort of semi-waterproof, they could easily be removed to reveal all the buttons and functionality. In fact, they had far too many features. So what was done was we created a wrap for the camera, which masked some of the features, the screen on the back, but made available what was necessary just to take some digital pictures. So if we just turn it on, high definition camera, so we can change the mode to camera and take a picture very easily. We also produced a simplified guide how to use the camera, and a card where we'd write on what sort of things we'd actually want as photographs. Some of the main things here that we would ask people to take photographs of were pictures of their kitchens and bathrooms. Kitchens, because two of the activities being assessed are preparing food and eating, and bathrooms, because it's often it's an area that people might not want to talk about, but washing and bathing, going to the toilet, problems they have in those areas, and having a photograph to share and look at made it much easier to look at, and also actually identify some things that maybe they were having difficulties with, or there was some aids or appliances in those spaces which we could help identify things. So we produced a purpose-made container to store all the various parts in that as we assembled the diary together. So that was very much in contrast to sort of much more medical or official looking documents, letters, all these types of things that they need to provide as supporting evidence. And often they would turn up in lots of envelopes and even carrier bagfuls of such evidence when they came for the appointment with an advisor. So firstly, all the kits would include a card where we would write details of their upcoming appointment, okay? And the other thing we try to document on here for everyone is what additional documents and supporting evidence they should bring back. And sometimes they had some things already, but there were also some which they might be able to try and get hold of, which would support their argument on the form. And just to make those quick to fill in, we printed various key documents on these self-adhesive stickers, so we could just peel them off and attach them to the cards as quickly as possible to make up the kits. Remember, the diary wasn't intended to provide sort of information, copy and pasting it into the claim form, but instead was a way to help inform and encourage the discussion between the claimant and the advisor at the appointment, so that the output of the session, the completed claim form, is a stronger claim. So the whole purpose of this was to help people prepare for the appointment using a mixture of physical or digital tools. We had sort of 3 modes available. There was a sort of online only version, and then a couple of ways of doing things on paper. So we had some printed sheets so that we could just talk through what the options were in a very simple format. If people wanted to complete the diary online, we would complete this card, and we pre-prepare URLs of web forms, and then have a short address that we could give them. We'll just write it onto the card. These forms would be unique for the claimant, so the particular questions, 2 to 4 questions that they need to answer each day. And I can just show you that now briefly. So I shall just share my screen again. Here we go. So our partner agency, the charity, didn't want actually any, because this was real clients, remember, didn't want any client data, even if it was anonymous, to be outside their own IT systems. So we had to use their own Office 365 options that were available. So we did this in Microsoft Forms. So it was just a very simple form for the online version. These questions would be selected based on what had been discussed with the participant. So some of the things we were just trying to find out was this patterns of behaviour. How do things vary day to day? What was the pattern over a week or 2 weeks? And it was always a chance for people to note additional things as well as take the photographs. So if I just stop that screen share brief now. Okay. But as it happened, a lot of people preferred to choose the paper version. So for the paper version, we would select, again, 2 to 4 of these cards. Okay. Which they could complete each day by typically just sticking on some coloured dots. And we've produced a little guidance sheet which we could drop in the box as well, just to show how it was done. By the way, we asked people what colour of dots they wanted, and just as a note for future design, red dots, everyone chose red dots. So people would then we would assemble all that information together. So we would join all the various cards together with these little treasury tags and put it all together in the kit. So they would then go away for a couple of weeks until they're and come back at the appointment, hopefully with their completed diary. We did have options for sending reminders to people, but generally people didn't want reminders to do the day-to-day diary filling. They did want reminders for the appointment, however, which was quite useful. So they would come back with their box, and inside would be the camera and all the cards that they had completed, plus the notes. So this is a mock mock up. So that was the appointment. This is what they needed to bring. A couple of other things that we asked them to try to get hold of. Sometimes people, for example, didn't have prescription lists, so that was a good thing to mention there. And then they would complete their cards like this. So what we do is we disassemble this, lay the diary cards out, and then also ask them about the camera to see if they've taken any photographs. And actually, all the participants did take photographs, and often they took a few more pictures of more items than actually we'd listed on the blue cards. Quite often they, for example, took pictures of staircases, areas they were having problems with around their home. Now, though going up and down stairs isn't one of the assessed activities for the claim, it is a useful thing to open up the discussion. So, for example, where's your bedroom? Where's the bathroom? How do you move between them? These things can sometimes draw out some information that is useful to identify, and then write it on the claim form as well. So with the digital cameras, we could either look at it using the screen on the back, or if they were happy, we could tear off this disposable cover and copy the pictures and either perhaps print them out and look at them on the screen. So again, these are just some fake photographs, but often we had like 4 to 10 pictures or something like that to have a look through. So we'd lay those out as well. And then the advisor would go through the form filling appointment using these materials and to help aid the discussion. So they might say, oh, I see it looked like you had a bad week last week compared to this week. What was happening then? Or you had no problems taking your medication. Why was that? I thought that you mentioned that was a problem. And they might say, oh, well, my nephew or something was in helping me that week unusually, or something like that. So all this type of information helps create a better picture to help then document what is actually going on this rather long form, pages and pages of it. I mean, this normally takes a couple of hours to go through to fill out, so the better information you've got in front of you and with the claimant and able to discuss really helps it progress. That was where we got to with the shall we say, this sort of physical digital hybrid, and we put a website together. The URLs in the later, to try and help share this information so that other advice agencies might be able to use it. But that was sort of done during February and March. And of course, it sort of proved rather impossible to progress a toolkit which requires these face-to-face interactions between the claimant and the advisor. So what we've been working on at the moment is something called PIP Kit as a service, an idea to make it more of an online version, but we need something that advisors can actually select all these elements and build custom forms dynamically. So we started off with a sketch of the various ideas that we might want to do different versions. This is actually in the document pack if you want to look at it in more detail. But we've been looking at how to produce that online dynamically, and in 2 ways. Then either letting claimants who have internet access complete the form online, or generate a paper form dynamically and actually post it to the claimant via one of sort of a mailing house. So which we've done one proof of concept already. So this was a dynamically generated PDF. These are the form pages, and then the idea is the claimant would just colour in things and either probably post this back unless they can scan and photograph it and email. And then we've got an online version again, so I'll just share my screen briefly. Great. So we've got the equivalent thing of a online form in so okay, so fill in a diary, a few questions. This is an older one, but we can look at view the diary, and it actually generates a PDF here. So this is what the PDF looks like. Okay, so these are the documents they were going to bring. And then here's the diary sheets, which this is the online filling in one effectively. So we're showing which dates they're filled in, which ones were missing, things like that. So that's work in progress at the moment. If we just, we wrote a paper for Kai, which is this. The URL's in the document pack, but we've got a short URL here. We also produced a poster last month, and the PDF of this is in the document pack as well as that URL. And as I mentioned, there is a PIP Kit website, which at the moment is broadly around the tools, tips and materials, how to use the physical system. But this will also be where we deploy the PIP Kit as a service. And there is a blog on there, and you see it's updated frequently with useful upcoming events like the HCI Summer Festival. I am in the process of trying to get participants both to test this PIP Kit as a service, and also then potentially benefit advisors working with PIP claimants to use it. Separately, I'm also beginning to work on universal credit, working with formal and informal intermediaries who assist universal credit claimants and beneficiaries. So I'm trying to find participant advisors and also claimants themselves, and looking at how universal credit, the online system, is actually used and the difficulties interacting with that system itself. So I shall stop sharing my screen and I've finished my demonstration.
All right, thanks, Colin. Have a virtual applause for Colin, please. Yes, thank you. I think that was a very nice presentation and a good demo of the actual physicalness of your kit, so thanks for that. If there are any questions, you can post them in the chat now. I think we have about 10 to 15 minutes for some questions. Or you can raise your hand. I think there's also one of the Zoom reactions is raise your hand. And then I can appoint you some questions. Let's get everyone in view. I can get over here. Yes. Yes, there are questions. You can post it into the Kai paper. So I think we can, Colin can do that after the questions when Haoran is presenting. And then we have a question from Eachesters. Do you want to ask the question yourself?
Yeah, I can do. So I'm great actually looking into it. My mum has fibromyalgia and she's had to do this numerous times. So I've heard the stories from her. But as someone who is passionate about accessibility as a designer anyway, I was wondering how you see this like in different formats. So the physical is great, and I see that you mentioned like a lot of people were mostly like cognitively impaired or that way. But so how do you see this moving forward for people who are say like blind or in particular mobility impaired?
Yes, thank you. Sometimes people who are seeking help with the claim form also have carers or close family members or advocates who are helping them, as well as seeking the specialist advice for filling in the claim form. So sometimes those people already have a relationship to help bridge some of the communication difficulties. We are hoping that the online system might help some people who are less able or less willing to actually attend something physical. Because in the past, yes, there were people who don't want to come to an office to fill in a form anyway, or are unable to. But I think the process of explaining and understanding the needs is something that needs to be, it's a big part of it. That's sort of at the start of the process, understanding what's going to be reasonable, what is possible, and what's appropriate to ask claimants to do themselves in advance to prepare for a meeting. And then the form filling itself, well, sometimes we work with people that it's useful that we can draft things out that they can then, for example, read separately, look at in large print, or use text-to-speech devices so that can then aid the discussion. But yes, there's plenty more to do.
All right, thanks. Are there any other questions? Right, I see a question from David. Do you want to ask the question?
Hey, Colin. Yes. I was just curious. The camera in your physical toolkit reminded me a little bit of these probe tools that with using cultural probes, and especially the camera kind of caught my eye. Where I think so in Goldsmiths in London they made this little camera which distorts in a way the image before it captures it. Either making it a line drawing or extra blurry or anything. Is there any need or for these pictures as evidence to become more private or increase the privacy on those kind of logging? Yes, or is it not needed?
Thank you. Yes, at the start of the process we weren't actually thinking the photographs would actually form evidence themselves, but as it happened we did actually, in all the cases for the claimants that actually used it, we did actually print the photographs out and include them along with the claim form when it was sent to the DWP. We had suggested to people that they don't take photographs of any other people, but it was useful that it wasn't that we weren't too specific about what they took pictures of, because sometimes the photographs would reveal things that people might not have mentioned themselves, because quite often people normalize what they're doing. It's just like, well, I do that every day, I don't think that's something special. For example, one person showed me a picture of their kitchen and there wasn't a hob or cooker in it, there was just a gap in the units. And I said, oh, well, what are you using to cook? And he said, oh, well, I'm really scared of forgetting, leaving things on, and I've caused fires in my previous home and things. So when I moved into this new house, I didn't have a cooker installed, and I took these photographs instead. And you can see they had like a slow cooker and a casserole type device. So that was really useful. So those cooking devices are actual aids to that person's problems with forgetting about leaving things on and therefore risking to their own safety. And in bathrooms and things, it's good just to be able to sort of talk and ask and say, well, oh, I see you've got a bath rather than a walk-in shower. How do you step over the side? And they might say, oh, well, so-and-so comes along and always helps me. And I was very careful that we asked, is it possible to look at the photographs? And it was up to them whether they showed them or not. This is why we wanted it as a separate device. And everyone was happy. And then again, is it okay to print these out for you? And then, do you want us to include these? So it was very optional. And it also gives them a feeling a bit more of that they're making decisions, which is true, but you're asking them for their opinion, and it perhaps helps them get a little bit more engaged in the process as well.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, I think we have time for one more question, and that is moving on to the next one. Is there anyone who wants to ask a question? Otherwise, I have one myself. So I was wondering, because you talked to, clearly you co-designed it with the disability claimants. I was wondering if you'd also had a chance to talk with the advisors who were the advisors of the people using this PIP kit and how they responded to it.
Yes, so I didn't go into so much detail about the design process, but thank you for asking the question. So actually, we did most of the design with the advisors first, and part of the reasoning for that was it's already a stressful process for claimants, and we didn't really want to impose too much of rerunning the process with people. So we did a lot of work with the advisors first, just to try and get the constraints and the key issues. And then really the trial was an initial trial to then get the claimants input as well. So I suppose what we're now doing on PIP Kit as a service is actually going to build a little bit on what the claimants came back with as feedback. So possibly their input is really only now being used. Yeah.
All right, thanks. Then if there's no more questions, then I think I would like to thank Colin for his nice presentation and actual physical demo. So I'll give another round of applause, please.
Thank you.
And then I would now like to introduce Haoran, who is going to present on his computer vision-based crowd